Deep in the Vatican, tucked beneath layers of stone and silence, there's a box. Inside it is the preserved head of a 17th century nun. She claimed to have written a letter, dictated by demons, in a language no one could read. Her body lies in Sicily, but her head? It's been hidden by the church for centuries. In this video, we're going to slow down and gently unravel her story. No drama, no sensationalism, just a quiet journey through forgotten convents, secret archives, and the delicate space between faith and fear. So take a breath, and let's begin. Take a moment to let the day fall away. Feel the quiet settling in the corners of your room, and let your breath fall into rhythm, soft and slow. Tonight, we will not be chasing myths or hunting monsters. Instead, we'll take a gentle walk through time, into the quiet halls of a convent, through candlelit corridors, past worn stone and whispered prayers. Our story begins not with spectacle, but with silence, a silence that has stretched across centuries, like a veil. There is, deep beneath the Vatican, among countless bones, ledgers, and forgotten artifacts, a preserved human head, delicate, sunken, carefully stored. The head is said to have belonged to a nun, a woman who lived and died more than 300 years ago. Her name was Sister Maria Crocifissa della Concezione. In her lifetime, she wrote letters she claimed were dictated by demons. After her death, her story was folded quietly into legend, and her remains hidden away. Tonight, we will not rush toward explanation. Instead, we will move slowly through her world, her day, her writings, and the strange place her memory holds within the church. But first, let us begin where she began, in a convent at dawn, with prayer, silence, and the rhythm of cloistered life. Behind the convent walls, a day in the life of a 17th century nun. Imagine yourself waking in darkness, not the thick, absolute darkness of the wild, but the stillness of a stone room lit only by a single taper. The bell has not rung yet, but you are already awake. You always are. The year is 1670. You are a nun, perhaps newly arrived or perhaps long settled, in a Benedictine convent in southern Italy. The town outside the walls sleeps, but within the cloister, the day begins long before sunrise. You rise from your straw-stuffed mattress in near silence. Your room is narrow, just a bed, a cross, a basin. The air smells faintly of old wax and cold stone. Outside your door, others stir. A rustle of linen, a creak of wood. No voices, no greetings. The rhythm of your life is one of quiet, repetition, and devotion. The Benedictine rule, ora et labora, prayer and work. This is your world. The bell finally sounds, low, deep, and familiar. Its tone vibrates in your chest, not alarming, but grounding. A signal, not a summons. You make your way with the others to the chapel. Your sandals press softly against the worn flagstones. Some of these stones have been walked by generations of women, daughters of noblemen, of merchants, of farmers, now all equal before the altar. The chapel is dim. Candles flicker along the altar rail. A few strands of incense still drift in the air from the night before, bitter and sweet like dried herbs. The day opens with matins. The psalms are chanted, voices soft and layered. Latin syllables roll off the tongue like water over smooth rock. The sound is not meant to stir emotion, but to steady the soul. After prayer, the day unfolds in a series of quiet tasks. Some sisters tend the small herb garden, their fingers dusted with earth. Others work in the scriptorium, copying manuscripts or writing letters on thick, fibrous paper. The scratch of quills, the rustle of parchment. These are the sounds of industry here. The kitchen hums with modest activity. Bread is prepared from coarsely ground wheat. Lentils soak in clay bowls. On rare days, there may be cheese or a preserved fish. Meals are taken in silence, punctuated only by the reading of scripture. In the afternoon, you retreat again to the chapel, then to your cell for study or contemplation. Sometimes the abbess calls a meeting, calm and measured, about household affairs or discipline. Other times, you may be asked to tend a sick sister or sew linen for the altar. There is comfort in the repetition, each day nearly identical to the last and to the next. You do not seek variety, you seek depth. Even the seasons unfold gently here. A few autumn leaves might drift into the cloistered courtyard. In winter, the stone grows colder and candles burn longer. Spring brings fresh herbs, rosemary, rue, fennel, and a thin sunlight that slips across the chapel floor. But of course, not every heart finds peace in the quiet. For some, silence becomes a weight, and in rare cases, it is said silence makes room for strange voices. Sister Maria Crucifissa was one such soul, a woman of faith, a woman of discipline, and, if the stories are to be believed, a woman tormented. Her writings remain, her life is recorded, if imperfectly, and her head rests, even now, in a sealed box beneath Vatican stone. Let us now turn the page and walk alongside her for a time. Sister Maria Crocifissa della Concezione, the nun who spoke with demons. The year is 1676. In the small Benedictine convent of Palma di Monte Chiaro, nestled within the dry hills of southern Sicily, a nun lies motionless on the floor of the chapel. Her arms are spread wide. Her face is pale, and in one hand, she clutches a crumpled piece of paper, thick, stiff, and inked with symbols no one in the convent can read. The sisters gather silently. Their habits rustle faintly as they bend over the writing. What they see is not Latin, nor Greek, nor any script they recognize. Jagged strokes, serpentine curves, broken words, half formed, half forgotten. The air in the room is still, but heavy with unspoken questions. The nun on the floor is Sister Maria Crocifissa della Concezione. Her birth name was Isabella Tomasi, daughter of a noble Sicilian family. Her cousin would one day become pope. But she turned away from the grandeur of lineage and entered the convent at age 15. Like many women of her rank and era, the convent was both retreat and refuge, a place of spiritual discipline, yes, but also a setting in which a noblewoman might wield influence of another kind. Through letters, visions, and spiritual acts, some nuns shaped the reputations of their houses in subtle ways. Sister Maria, however, was quiet, contemplative, devout. Yet, over the years, the other nuns began to notice a change. Whispers of waking in the night, long hours in the chapel alone, agitated prayers, fasts taken beyond necessity, and sudden tremors during sacred readings. In a world so tightly ordered, these disturbances did not go unnoticed. And then, one morning, she claimed she had awoken to find her hand aching, her face wet with tears, and the strange letter clenched tightly in her fingers. She did not know what it said. She did not recall writing it. She claimed it had been dictated to her by entities, not heavenly ones. The convent's records, calm, formal, and restrained, record the events with care. They speak of Sister Maria's episodes with cautious language. Some said she was ill. Others called it spiritual affliction. A few quietly used stronger words. The letter itself remains. Even today, it is kept, stored in the convent archives. Its script has confounded scholars for centuries. Some say it was a cipher. Others suspect glossolalia, a written form of so-called speaking in tongues. A few modern cryptographers have claimed to decode fragments, suggesting phrases like, "God is a man-made invention," or "the Trinity does not exist." But the truth is, we do not know, and perhaps, in the end, that uncertainty is more revealing than any interpretation, because Sister Maria's life was not defined by this one episode. Far from it. After the event, she continued in the convent for many years. She did not leave, nor was she cast out. She remained Sister Maria, faithful, disciplined, and deeply pious until her death. No more letters appeared. No further claims of possession were recorded. Her life returned to the rhythm of cloistered time, matins, silence, prayer. But what lingered was the aura, a sense that something in her experience touched a boundary between what was accepted and what was feared. Was she ill? Was she gifted? Was she quietly expressing doubts that could not be said aloud? Was she, in her way, resisting the shape of her world? The church of her time had many ways of naming women who saw or said too much. It is worth noting that her family protected her reputation. Her cousin, later Pope, never condemned her, nor allowed her name to be dragged into spectacle. The convent never expelled her, and yet, something about her story was quietly folded away. Her body was interred beneath the convent, but her head, only her head, was later removed and eventually transferred to a Vatican reliquary. No display, no ceremony, just preservation, as though, in some way, she still had something to say. Perhaps they feared what might happen if too many people listened. Her story now lingers in the in-between space, between legend and truth, between faith and fear. And so we turn from her life to her legacy, to the mystery of relics, symbols, and the quiet places where memory is kept hidden from light. Let us now descend, down into archives and vaults, into the cool, airless halls beneath the Vatican. The head beneath the Vatican. Relics, secrets, and symbolic control. Beneath the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica, past marble halls and ancient staircases, lies a quieter Vatican, one the public rarely sees. It is a world of archives, reliquaries, and sealed chambers. Some hold manuscripts, others house bones. Some are labeled in Latin, others not at all. The air is cool and dry. It smells of parchment, beeswax, and very old stone. Somewhere in these subterranean spaces, according to internal records, is a box. And within it, a skull. Mummified, labeled, almost never discussed. The head is said to be that of Sister Maria Crocifissa della Concessione. It is not displayed for pilgrims. It is not part of the relictors. It does not rest in a gold case beneath an altar. It is hidden, preserved in the way one might keep a document, not a saint. Why? To understand that, we must first explore the Church's long and careful relationship with relics. Relics, in Christian tradition, are physical remnants of the holy, bones, hair, garments, even the objects they once touched. The Church has preserved these items for nearly 2,000 years, not just for their spiritual significance, but for their symbolic and political power. Relics draw pilgrims. They shape identity. A church housing the arm of a saint or a splinter of the true cross becomes more than a building. It becomes sacred ground, a place where the veil between heaven and earth feels thinner. And yet, not all relics are treated equally. Some are elevated, enshrined, venerated, bathed in incense and gold. Others are quietly tucked away. preserved but not proclaimed. These hidden relics often belong to figures whose stories rest on uncertain ground. People like Sister Maria, whose spiritual experiences defy neat categories. For the Vatican, preservation is not endorsement. To keep her skull is not to canonize her. It is to hold her memory in trust, perhaps for another time, or perhaps as a gesture of caution. Relics speak to control, not just over matter, but over narrative. By separating Sister Maria's head from her body, the Church symbolically divides her physical remains from her spiritual identity. Her body remains with the convent, her life, her faith, her daily devotion. But her head, the part associated with speech, with vision, with those troubling letters, is removed, sealed, guarded. There is a long, quiet tradition of this. Saints whose tongues were preserved because they preached, mystics whose eyes were removed for separate veneration. And in darker cases, individuals whose parts were kept apart as a way of limiting their influence. A relic is not just a remnant, it is a message. The Church's archives are filled with these messages. Some are radiant, others are more ambiguous, curious, unsettling, quietly unresolved. The head of Sister Maria rests among these, unmarked to the public, its existence quietly acknowledged in internal documents, mentioned only in passing by scholars. There are no records of its examination, no DNA tests, no ceremony of translation, which would mark a relic's official movement or enshrinement. And so it waits, in a dark, temperature-controlled vault, a piece of a story the Church has neither disavowed nor celebrated. It is easy to imagine conspiracy here, secret orders, forbidden texts, arcane knowledge. But the truth is subtler, quieter, more human. The Church, like many institutions, is made up of people. People who believe, people who doubt, people who preserve without fully understanding. In preserving Maria's head, the Vatican is not necessarily hiding a demon, but perhaps hiding uncertainty, a discomfort with stories that don't resolve, with voices that do not conform. And so, the head remains, in silence. It is not alone. All around it lie other fragments of saints and sinners, priests and pilgrims, visionaries and skeptics. The Vatican's hidden reliquaries are a memory palace of contradictions. And they remind us that history is not always told through monuments. Sometimes it is kept in boxes. Sometimes what matters most is not what is said, but what is quietly kept. As we rise now from the depths of the archive, let us return to the world above, not to the cloister, but to the palaces, to those who shape memory from on high. Let us compare the quiet lives of the cloistered with the grand decisions of cardinals and popes. Let us ask, who gets remembered and who remains in silence? Papal eyes and cloistered lives. Who gets remembered in the Church? Imagine yourself now in the Vatican Library. Above ground this time, the sunlight filters through high windows and narrow shafts, illuminating motes of dust that dance slowly and silently in the still air. Shelves rise around you like ancient trees, filled not with leaves, but with parchment and vellum, bound in calfskin and inked in Latin and Greek. Among these rows are the voices of popes, theologians, visionaries, and buried within them, sometimes, the faint whisper of a nun like Maria. It is a place where memory is arranged, filed, authorized, and from such places, history is shaped, not by what was lived, but by what was recorded, repeated, and revered. Throughout its long existence, the Church has been both sanctuary and seat of power. Its popes and cardinals were not merely spiritual guides, but political agents, patrons of art, shapers of empire. They wore silken robes, signed treaties, anointed emperors. In marble halls, they debated heresy, defined doctrine, and chose what stories would endure. And yet, at the same time, in villages and cities across Europe, women like Sister Maria lived in silence. Their prayers, their rituals, their lives passed in cloistered rooms far from the echo of power. The church was built on both. One might imagine a vast cathedral, its nave echoing with grandeur, its chapels tucked quietly in the shadows. The center stage and the quiet corners, both essential. But when it comes to memory, not all corners are illuminated. The story of Sister Maria and the quiet hiding of her head invites us to consider how the Church, and all institutions really, decide what is preserved with reverence and what is kept in reserve. Why does one nun become a saint, her bones placed beneath a jeweled altar, while another is hidden in an archive? Why does one vision become doctrine and another heresy? Much of it depends on timing, on politics, on who is watching and who is afraid. In Sister Maria's time, the Church was deeply engaged in defining the boundaries of orthodoxy. Mysticism, while often tolerated and even celebrated, became suspect when it challenged authority. A nun who claimed to hear angels might be canonized. A nun who claimed to hear other voices might not. But it was not only about fear. It was also about protection. For many nuns, the convent was the only space where they could read, write, think deeply. Some composed music, others wrote letters to bishops, some even debated theology. These were not lives of passive obedience, but of quiet influence. Still, the limits were clear. A woman's spiritual authority was acceptable so long as it did not disrupt the narrative of the Church. Sister Maria's experience did not fit easily. It was neither entirely condemned nor wholly embraced. Her letter was preserved, but untranslated. Her body buried, but her head removed. And so, she remains, a figure at the edge of official memory. There is a kind of poetry in that, because in the end, most history is not made by the powerful. It is made by ordinary people whose lives echo quietly like bells beneath stone. The rhythm of their days, their questions, their moments of fear or faith, these are the threads from which the fabric of time is woven. The popes and cardinals may guide the loom, but it is the lives of countless unknown nuns, scribes, peasants, and thinkers who shape the cloth. And though many of them are forgotten, others, like Maria, linger at the edges of silence. Half-remembered, preserved, but not proclaimed. Let us now step away from the halls of marble and memory. Let us return, finally, to the quiet, to the cloister, to the chapel, to the soft rustle of linen and the low hum of prayer. It is here, in this stillness, that the deepest stories reside. Echoes in the silence. And so, we come to the end. Not the end of a tale wrapped in certainty or sealed in gold leaf, but the kind of ending that feels more like dusk than conclusion, soft, lingering, unfinished, in the way that all real histories are. We have walked the worn stone of a 17th century convent. We have listened for the quiet rhythms of cloistered life, the rustle of habits, the drip of wax, the layered psalms echoing through the chapel's stone. We have sat, if only for a moment, beside Sister Maria Crocifissa della Concezione, once Isabella Tomasi, and traced the gentle line of her life, a line interrupted by mystery, and then returned again to silence. We followed her story not into spectacle, but into the subdued spaces that the Church holds sacred and secret. Vaults where relics lie unnamed, rooms where memory is preserved, not displayed, And finally, we turned our gaze upward to the palaces of the powerful, where choices are made about who is remembered and how. The head of Sister Maria still rests beneath Vatican stone. It is not a secret, not quite, but neither is it illuminated. Perhaps it is waiting, or perhaps it simply is. There's a kind of peace in that, because history does not always need resolution. Sometimes it only asks us to listen, gently, without judgment, without rushing toward explanation. And in doing so, we give space for those voices at the edge of silence to be heard again, not loudly, but clearly, not as demons or saints, but simply as people, fragile, faithful, and full of questions.